Every great story begins in a place almost no one remembers to look.
Deep in the places where light cannot reach, there is an eternal kingdom ruled by a god whose name mortals are afraid to speak. That kingdom breathes in absolute silence, far from the sun, far from the temples, far from the glory given to the gods praised above. There reigns Hades, lord of the dead, guardian of a realm no mortal wishes to know, yet one from which no one escapes. Centuries passed beneath the earth, and he watched countless souls cross his boundary in silence, one after another. Every soul that arrives is a story brought to an end, a life completed, a reminder that all things eventually fall under his rule. But Hades does not rule with cruelty. He rules with order, with precision, with the responsibility that keeps the cosmos in balance. While Zeus commands the skies and Poseidon rules the seas, Hades keeps the unseen world running without recognition. No hymns are sung in his honor, no crowds gather in prayer, no sacrifices are offered in celebration of his silent presence. And yet, without him, there would be no order between life and death, only chaos, fracture, and imbalance across every realm. Hades was never a tyrant. He was the guardian of a role no other god was willing to take. For him, immortality was never a blessing. It was a sentence, long, unbroken, and without end. His throne cannot stand empty because the god who sits upon it is never allowed to leave his post. He watched empires rise, expand, go to war, and turn to dust, while he remained exactly where he had always been. He saw mighty kings become forgotten names, and worshipped heroes meet the same end as everyone else. He carried the weight of every death that has already happened, and every death still to come. And even so, his purpose is not to destroy. His purpose is to receive, to order, to judge, and to keep the boundary intact. Within his kingdom lies a truth the living rarely accept. Death is also part of order. Hades knows the name of every soul before it even understands its own fate. He is the final answer to every life, the boundary between existence and oblivion, between motion and silence. His curse and his gift are one and the same. To rule forever in a world where everything ends the same way. Above him, the gods shine. Below, he remains unseen yet essential, sustaining what no one wants to face. Hades never asked for the sun, never demanded applause, never rebelled against the role he was given. Instead, he perfected his kingdom, strengthened its order, and turned silence into absolute authority. His power does not need to shout, because even death obeys his whispered command. There is a severe kind of nobility in serving a purpose so fundamental that mortals do not even need to understand it. Hades chose duty over glory, stability over vanity, permanence over recognition. That is the truth of a forgotten god. He was not punished for weakness, but isolated because he was necessary. For him, time carries a different weight. Centuries pile up like stone upon stone upon his eternal throne. And still he remains. Not in despair, but in deep acceptance of a truth that cannot be changed. Some crowns are worn alone, and some thrones were never meant to have company. The underworld is not a prison. It is a kingdom, ordered, steady, eternal, and essential to the continuation of all existence. Hades is the lord of the dead, guardian of the final boundary, and the one certainty that unites all mortals. This is his story, not the story of a villain, nor of a victim, but of a god of absolute duty. But even the most unshakable eternity can be changed by a single unexpected presence. Through the silent halls of the underworld, whispers begin to spread of a visitor who will change everything. Persephone arrives, daughter of Demeter, goddess of spring, life, and the blooming world above. Her presence brings something into Hades' realm that had never existed there before: color, contrast, movement, and change. She does not arrive by her own choosing, but as part of an event that shakes gods, nature, and fate itself. To the world above, she is a prisoner taken into the realm of the dead against her will. But Hades does not see her as a trophy, an object, or a passing guest. He sees in her strength, greatness, and a presence capable of standing beside him as an equal. Demeter cannot accept the separation. In her grief, she abandons her duties, and the earth falls into barrenness. Nothing grows, crops fail, hunger spreads among mortals like a divine warning. The world of the living begins to collapse because a mother refuses to accept the loss of her daughter. Zeus intervenes, not out of kindness, but because the imbalance threatens the order of every realm. A bargain is made. Persephone will divide her time between the surface and the underworld. Half the year with Demeter, half the year beside Hades as queen of an unseen kingdom. At first, it seems like a forced compromise, but time reveals something far deeper. Persephone does not become a prisoner of the underworld, she becomes part of it. Little by little, she stops merely remaining there and begins choosing to stay. For the first time in all his eternity, Hades is no longer just a guardian. He is truly seen. Persephone sees in him not a god of terror, but a god of transformation, order, and depth. Hades' loneliness is not broken by rescue, but by true recognition. He no longer rules alone. He rules beside someone who understands the weight of what he carries. His condemned eternity begins to change into a shared reign. On the surface, the seasons begin to reflect that pact: departure, return, loss, reunion, cycle, and renewal. Mortals harvest in their proper time without realizing that their calendar depends on the journey of a queen between worlds. Demeter grieves, but at last she understands that her daughter is not a prisoner. She is sovereign over a destiny she has chosen. And Hades realizes that eternity can hold meaning when there is someone willing to share it with him. The forgotten god ceases to be merely necessary and becomes loved as well. But no eternity remains untouched forever. Even the gods must face trials greater than isolation itself. From the oldest depths, Tartarus awakens, the embodiment of primordial chaos that existed before order. Hades understands the danger at once. This is not a political threat, nor a dispute among gods. If Tartarus breaks free, the very balance between existence and destruction could collapse. This time, however, Hades does not descend into the abyss alone. Persephone remains at his side. Together they descend into the primordial depths, where almost no god has dared to return since the beginning of time. Tartarus reveals itself not as a creature, but as an ancient force, brutal, inevitable, and beyond reason. The battle that follows is not merely physical. It is order against chaos, permanence against dissolution, structure against entropy. In that confrontation, Persephone reveals a new power, the ability to bring life and form even into the void. And Hades feels something rare within his eternal kingdom: hope. Not because he has escaped duty, but because he no longer bears it alone. Tartarus cannot be destroyed because primordial forces do not vanish. They can only be contained. And it is Hades and Persephone together who seal it once more in the depths. When they return, the gods of Olympus finally see Hades for what he has always been: a pillar of the cosmos. His story is no longer the story of an isolated god, but of a complete king. Because Hades discovered the truth that changes eternity itself. Even an endless burden can find meaning when it is shared. If you love mythology, mystery, and epic storytelling, this channel was made for you. Subscribe now.